Hey Virgo. This is a month with a lot of gray area. There's a change in pace. And there's a change in you making you want to speak up about certain things more. Those things have to do with parts of you that have taken a deeper look at what makes you tick. And that tick could be something different for everyone. It could be anything that causes like a prolonged negative reaction is kind of what I'm thinking. So if not for anyone but for yourself, to speak up and liberate that part of you that is just not, and without judgment, that is just not doing that well, like Pisces without judgment. Trust me, they have judgments, but they know they're not perfect. And that's not shade. But it's to speak up about your needs. It's also to speak up about also what you know, and to acknowledge what you know and not be afraid, especially if you're in a group of people. You don't maybe recognize how much what you're saying is really important, and it's like that cliche. If you ask a question, chances are that someone else in the room is wanting to ask the same question. And for you, it's kind of like that, but it's not. It's more of like you have something to say, and people around you may not realize, whether they do or not realize, that they needed to hear what you said or asked, or hear what you asked. It's really important that you not, even if it feels weird or uncomfortable or just out of your comfort zone. Because what's being shown to you is what it's like to have a solid foundation, not only in the relationships and how you can move forward from what has ever happened, whatever has happened in the past. It's really important that you do that, because you realize, so there's a lot of realizations this month, and I think it comes from speaking up about what you've been thinking about and not being afraid to be acknowledged for those things, and to take a look at what you've built thus far and how you've not only been treating that the people or the situation or the values in your life that you call a foundation. Like, if you think about that, if you haven't thought about that, it's maybe a good time to, but if you have thought about that, it's time to really acknowledge and nurture them as if they are still at the beginning stages of growth. If you think of a plant or even a baby or an animal, and you find that yes, you like to be alone, or you find yourself alone, or whatever the situation may be, but we come to realize that it's kind of been a choice for a while, and granted, a decent choice most of the time, being in your own company, but it's also making you recognize why you haven't spoken up about certain things. And this season, and I just kind of stated similar, not the same, but similar things to Pisces in their own way, that this month is going to make you think about it and possibly even talk about it. Mars is moving into Aquarius, Venus is moving into Aquarius, and right at the beginning of March. And you may find yourself very content in your thoughts, very content within yourself, yet at the same time wanting to use this version of yourself more, because you find that all along there's these couple of things that was stopping you, or stopping whatever, or maybe it's just the whole lesson all along. I mean, who says it was stopping? Let's not put it that way. But it's a whole like breath of fresh air when you realize that the next time or this moment, or if you ever, or even just reflecting in these moments, in these situations, you realize that you have a confidence about wanting to address things differently. You don't want to, like, there's certain places that you can procrastinate, but in turn you end up hurting yourself, because it is about more about you, but it also affects people around you, as you know, depending also on your job and your situation. But there's this deep contentness that you can come to by the end of the month within yourself in a way that is so much different. And it's been happening for a while, but the change and shift in energy is going to probably amaze you. But you might find yourself really tired until towards the end of the month, or just noticing that certain things feel like a struggle, but it's just because you're learning new things. And when you learn new things about yourselves, you have to constantly flex that muscle and understanding and receptivity to understand it more and to feel it more and to gauge it more. Sometimes it's one click with one situation, but most of the time it takes repetition. And that's why we go through cycles, and that's why we have to learn, and that's why we end up learning similar things, or being in similar situations in the past. And that's what astrology is, and that's what this, everything is in circles and in cycles. So the cycle that you're going through is somewhere through stating what you need to others, not just from yourself, but from, and also really that really includes, saving parts of yourself that you give to others for yourself, instead of just being like, this is what I always do for people. I know those slight shifts might feel like a big impact within you and within how you normally interact, but you know that it can be uncomfortable in times of change, especially when changing affects people that you work with or that you're closely with more often than not, or family. But I do think this is more of a work situation or a friend situation, not so attached. Not saying that doesn't happen, but really that gives a shift to this part of you that feels maybe caught in the past about certain values, certain ways where you laid a foundation and you're like, you know what, I need to choose differently, and you are based off of that. So all of that coming around to the full moon, which is on the 18th of March, you may feel a big sigh of relief at that time, and also a lot more integration, because you don't realize that this whole time this is a part of this whole process for you. And what happens after that, and you could meet a Scorpio possibly, but we'll get into that into the second part, which will be in a link below on Patreon. And we hear sorry, and by the end of the month you will find yourself very willing and able to go after anything that you hadn't had the energy to in the past, and then you realize it's because it wasn't happening until now. And Mars moving into Aquarius seems to be like a very good thing for you. And I think you're going to be able to have some conversations stating these things, and having conversations with people who actually want to hear what you need and want to understand why you feel the way you feel, and why it's important to have that acknowledged, just because it's important, and it may be exactly what you need, even if it feels awkward like this video. I know, I think that's what it is, because bottom of the deck, truth being told, that it's really important for you to get out of that habit, because there's, again, a lot more energy where that comes from, and a lot more out there on the table for you. or the sandbox of life, whatever you want to call it. So it's really more of a gray area, and it seems as though that the problem is the solution. The problem, if you want to call it a problem, is the solution. So wherever you're seeing a problem, that's also somewhat of what helps everything change. Yeah. All right. In the next part, we will take a look at the cards where I explain even further and usually gain a little more insight. And I'll see you next month, Virgo.